acceptance speech on behalf of the group. These individuals left on a bus from Nashville, Tennessee, to join the Freedom Riders. Jailed in Mississippi, they experienced hardship, but they emerged victorious. So here to accept the Civil Rights Award on their behalf is Dr. Pauline Knight-Ofosu. She will speak for her Freedom Riders. But first, let's play the video.
In 1960, a U.S. Supreme Court decision gave travelers the legal right to disregard local segregation ordinances regarding interstate transportation facilities. But it was the ruling itself which was blatantly disregarded by local segregationists who refused to relinquish their whites-only signs and other vestiges of discrimination in bus terminals and train stations throughout the South. Inspired by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., hundreds of students and other activists rode interstate buses into the segregated South to assert their rights. Included in those numbers were 14 students from Tennessee State University. They were members of the Nashville Student Group, a local group of students who had successfully desegregated the city's lunch counters and movie theaters. What did the TSU Freedom Riders receive for their courageous efforts? They were expelled by the university. Vindication is seldom swift, but for the 14 TSU Freedom Riders, it took nearly half a century. After much debate and public outcry, on April 25th of 2008, the Tennessee Board of Regents reversed an earlier decision and agreed to award honorary Doctor of Humane Letters to the 14 students. And in the words of then TSU President Dr. Melvin Johnson, the action will serve to remind this generation of students of a time when young people were willing to risk reputations, careers, their freedom, and their lives for a higher cause. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame Foundation salutes the Tennessee State University Freedom Riders.
Thank you for being here. We are so absolutely honored to be here tonight. To the Board of Directors, Judge Hatchett, to Dr. Portia Shields at Tennessee A&I State University, to the chairman of this committee, we are so honored. And we're so glad that we took that step because we could not fathom the freedom rides being stopped because someone was afraid that we would die. My goodness, Jesus died for us all, so why can't we die for one another? Last month, Dr. Harbor's wife and I started witnessing on the telephone, and that's something we love to do. And we love it because we're so thankful that he brought us from a mighty long way. He showed us how to come, he taught us, he brought us, and here we are today to prove that error can't hold you down. Segregation is not real. The only thing that's real is the truth. And the truth is freedom, and we can show that we proved it. And I'm so thankful for it. You know, a Bible verse that touched Mrs. Harbor and myself was the 6th chapter of Galatians. And it reads, and I may not read it verbatim, but the gist of it is this: be not weary in well-doing, for in due season ye shall reap. Are we reaping? We're reaping, and we thank you for it. Two things really touched me, and I know that there are other things that have touched me, but in the middle of the night, when we were all at Hinds County Jail, we were awakened, told to take our things, and they put us on flatbed trucks and drove us about 2 hours in the dead of the night, moss-hanging trees, and let us know that we were going through Money, Mississippi, because that's where Emmett Till had been murdered. Well, the Tallahatchie River was right there, and that's where his body was recovered. But we weren't weary, and we didn't faint. And because we didn't faint, we're here tonight. And then another time in Parchment Jail, penitentiary, the most infamous prison there is, and still today is. People are still disappearing in Mississippi, and we've got to do something about it. And the death penalty should not be able to stand. We need to do something about it, so I'm asking you to get up and let's do something about it. Well, they got us into prison. One of the worst things that you can ever do to anybody is have them sleep on steel. The holes in that steel were so big, and they would turn on the air conditioning at night. And you know, our skin felt like it was burning, and you felt like it being sucked into some of those holes. But somebody else was in that prison with us, just like with somebody else in the fiery furnace with those Hebrew boys. And the reason that we know that somebody was there is because we burned and froze at night, but in the morning, we didn't have any scars. I have never heard one of us say that we had scars. And why didn't we have them? Because somebody else was in there. And who do you think that somebody else was? We know it was God, and we profess it's God, and we'll claim it. It's God who helped us. We thank you, and we're so happy that we've come this way. HBCU was all we knew growing up, and we revered and respected all our professors and all of our people who worked in those institutions. And when Dr. Thomas Todd spoke today, we just felt so uplifted, and we thank you again for that burning message that you gave us earlier today. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for being here. We thank you for loving us, but always remember, we love you more.
All right, let's give them a standing ovation. Everybody, on your feet. Standing ovation. Thank you for this opportunity, Judge Hackett. Here's your mic.
I'm full. I don't know about you. If this didn't touch your soul, we're going to check your monitor on your heart. All 14 people stand here, I think, with just one representative. Is that right? Yes. We have one representative, but we have 13 of the original 14 Tennessee State Freedom Riders. And words, Pearl, I need you back up here now, because I don't have the words to really be able to tell you and to express to you our deep appreciation. And what I know in my heart of hearts, that because of the sacrifices that you made and the courage and the conviction that you exhibited, means that I get to stand here tonight, that you get to be here tonight, that my children and their children yet born, of generations yet born, will never have to knock on a door for it to be opened in a segregated South. Now, we've got some other challenges. Lord knows we've got some other challenges. But for you tonight, we celebrate you and we thank you for who you are and what you have meant to the world. Quickly, as they're taking their seats before I invite Tommy, I was just full. I remember stepping over pallets in my parents' living room of Freedom Riders. And my mother making lunches and her putting her beloved nephew, and they weren't married then, but Glenda Davis is here, putting them on that bus, not knowing whether they'd ever see them again or not. And I didn't understand. I was young, you know, he just kind of stepping all over these bodies in the living room, and my parents were trying to explain to me that these students were taking a stand. And I wish I had that coat, Mama, now that I thought was hideous at the time, because you wouldn't cross the picket lines. And you took the coat and put a red insert at the bottom and on the sleeves, and I now appreciate that that was my freedom coat. And so for all of the men and women who sacrificed so much for us to be at a different place, I come tonight to say thank you. Thomas Dortch, yes. Thomas Dortch had a vision and wouldn't let go of it. That he thought that there should be a National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame. And so for 26 years, we've been inducting people into this Hall of Fame, year after year after year after year. But let us not forget that this is all because Tommy Dortch not only had this amazing vision, but he wouldn't let it go. And for that, we're so grateful. I mean, he's been tenacious. When everybody couldn't catch hold of the vision, he was moving on forward, and there were people who got with it, and there were some people who didn't understand it. Well, look at what's happened all these years later. And so, Tommy, I thank you for who you are and what you've done, and we celebrate you tonight. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is my deep honor to introduce the chair of the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame and my friend for more than 30 years, Thomas Dortch.
Thank you. Let's thank Glenda for a wonderful evening and marshaling us through this evening. Thank you, my sister. I'm going to be brief, but I want to first start by asking the members of the Board of Directors of the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame Foundation to stand. They're all here. Please stand and be recognized. And I thank my colleagues. We have our Vice Chair of the Board, who is here and has been one of our big financial supporters and everything else. As all my board, everybody writes a check. But Royal Mack, our Vice Chairman, and of course Lisa Menzies, our Secretary of the Board, and the members of the board. There are some very special women in this audience that we have to recognize, even though all of you are, but the queens of the historical black colleges and universities that are here competing this year, those that are still remaining. Please stand and recognize our queens from our campuses, our historical black colleges and universities that are here. And remind you that tomorrow night, these dynamic young ladies, we said is not competing, they're actually showcasing the great talent and intellect that exists on our campuses. So tomorrow night at 7:30 here in this ballroom, we'll have the annual final competition of the National Black College Queens competition here in this room. So we want you to see them. And joining us this year, for the second year, we have kings on our campuses, and so all of the kings that are still here with us of our campuses, historical black college campus kings, please stand and be recognized. We have SGA presidents and officers from the boards that have joined us and that are in the audience. And our golf teams, they went to bed early. This is the 22nd year and the largest golf competition for the historical black colleges and universities, Division I and Division II, sanctioned by the NCAA. And they will have their championship rounds on Sunday. But we would thank all of them and the golf coaches, the Black College Golf Coaches Association, for all that they do. You see, of course, the Gene Young dynamic team to my right, and I don't know if they're still here. I make sure they get their rest, but For 14 years, I've partnered with Jean Charles Young Middle School. We have our Young Men of Distinction program there. Many of our young people have now gone on and graduated from college and graduated from HBCUs. Dr. Kelvin Griffin, I don't know if he's still here, our newest principal. Our principal retired and we didn't miss a beat because they brought us a great dynamic leader, and Dr. Kelvin Griffin, our new principal for Jean Charles Young, is here, and thank you for the leadership and the Young Men of Distinction and the parents that are there. We want to thank you. We do this, and we couldn't do it. We thank all of you who are individual investors, but we want to say a very special thank you to those individuals who are major investors into what we're doing. Our platinum sponsors, you find them in the books that you have. Again, and they have been significant and been with us for years. Of course, tonight, we did recognize a number of them, but Aetna Foundation, AFLAC, AT&T Foundation, Atlanta Marriott Marquis, Sierra Enterprises, which is owned by our Vice Chair of the Board, Delta Airlines, Georgia Pacific Foundation, Hyatt Regency, Johnson Controls. Lisa, thank you for keeping it up. Sodexo Campus Services, one of our newest members of the board, Fred Former-Keller, who understands every time he comes, he writes a check, but he says it's an investment. And last but not least, Wells Fargo as our platinum sponsors. And then, of course, you see our gold sponsors. We thank all of them for their support and all that they have done in support of what we've attempted to do over the years. Let me just bring it home. Tomorrow morning, we start with a gospel workshop thanks to Dr. Bobby Jones. We have high school gospel choirs that will be joining us here in the hotel in the morning. And then at 11:30, we have our annual Black College Gospel Choir competition. If you want to hear and move in the Spirit, let me suggest you ought to be here tomorrow morning for 11:30 when we have our annual competition. Now, the last 3 years, Benedict College has walked away with the championship, and the last 3 years, they battled with North Carolina A&T. Of course, the Wildcats at Fort Valley won it a few years ago. Savannah State University won it a few years ago, but you need to come and join us for the gospel choir competition. And tomorrow night, again, is the Queen's competition, which will be here at 7:30 tomorrow night in this ballroom. So please come and join us. Folks, there is no question that historical black colleges and universities are still needed. You continue to see the products of these institutions. You see the courageous leaders and those who've gone on to provide opportunities. And they did, many of them did what they did. We, of course, had one of our inductees of 96 years old, and of course, Clemmy Hatchett, who again, one of my inspirations. And I look at my mother at 91, and for them to have been able to do the things that they've done back when we only made dollars, we may have made a few $100s for the year.